Well, boys, let's talk. Malcolm grinned through a beard that looked like a mangy kitten had stuck to his face. Do you have those ciggies for me? This was the last of our 3 meetings with Malcolm. A model inmate, he was exceedingly polite and friendly. A stark contrast to the violent murders he was imprisoned for. I had agreed to help Steve with his postgraduate psychology thesis. This involved some fieldwork interviewing dozens of patients. Most were fairly mundane. A couple were truly horrifying, and Malcolm's was by far the most memorable. The interview had been set up by Steve's mentor, a jovial Dr. Mackenzie. He thought it would be both a valuable experience and a character-building exercise to meet someone with a deeply disturbed past. As an added bonus, he would be amused to have Steve squirm a little. So, here I was, locked in with a psychopath, because friends don't let friends accidentally get murdered doing homework. Our first meeting with Malcolm was unproductive, our thoughts mostly focused on trying not to get killed. As the interviewer, Steve was too self-conscious, too careful in avoiding saying the wrong thing, or making sudden movements that might be misinterpreted as a provocation. In reality, we had nothing to fear. Though he confessed to the murder of 6 people 4 years ago, Malcolm had not shown the slightest violent tendency since. His good behavior had earned him the privilege of participating in this program. As Malcolm never had visitors, he was very pleased to finally have some. The second meeting a week later was more relaxed. Malcolm opened up about his childhood. He was an only child in a middle-class family in the middle of suburbia. A rebellious youth, he had run away from home at 17 to elope with a girl his parents disapproved of. For 2 years, they roamed the country, taking up odd jobs. Short-order cook, bussing tables, minor theft. Until she got bored and left him for a richer fling. Heartbroken, he endured a few more years of drifting until his stubborn pride relented, and he made his way back home to ask his parents for forgiveness. He came back to find a foreclosed sign on a derelict house. His parents had spent their fortunes searching for him until they were tragically killed in a car accident a year earlier. He spent the next few years drowning his guilt with whiskey, using up what little remained of his inheritance. On the night of his 34th birthday, he had stumbled to a wharf to drown himself more permanently. Sitting on that dock, swigging the last of his Jack Daniels, he also drunk in the serenity of his surroundings. The boats bobbing up and down gently on the water, the twinkling lights reflecting playfully off the surface, the gentle lapping sound of waves against the pier. He gazed at the horizon that beckoned with the promise of things yet to see and experience. He decided he wasn't ready to go yet. Or perhaps he was too cowardly to go. He wanted to live. He didn't find God, but he did find hope. A reason to live. So he sobered up, worked steadily, and saved up until he could afford a small fishing boat that doubled up as his home. He loved to travel over that horizon when he could, and drop his fishing lines and just enjoy life on the water. There were many other things he wanted to see and do, but they would have to wait until he saved more money. But now at our third and final meeting, we wanted to know just one thing. What drove Malcolm to brutally kill Todd Weber, his wife Tracy, their sons Jack and Ryan, their uncle Bill, and another victim that could not be identified from the remains? We had to know what made Malcolm snap. Steve handed Malcolm the opened box of cigarettes. Malcolm grabbed them giddily and took a good whiff. "Thanks, boys. These'll do nicely." He grinned. putting the box away in his pocket. Malcolm didn't smoke, but many of the inmates did. No doubt that box would buy him a few favors.
So you'll be wanting to know what happened that night then, eh?
Yeah, why did you do those things in the police report? Steve pushed his body forward in his chair and pressed his arched fingers against his lips.
You've read the report then. You already know what happened.
The official court filings duly noted that Malcolm had confessed to the murders and pleaded insanity. A straightforward case, given the crime scene they found. We've done our research, yes. We've gone through the court transcripts, but you never gave a motive. You never explained why you did it. Malcolm slumped back in his chair, and his body language noticeably shifted to one of apprehension as he crossed his arms and started chewing on his nails. He stared intently at the security camera in the corner of the ceiling for several moments, furiously debating with himself in his mind. Finally, he whispered,
"Okay, I'll tell you. I've wanted to tell someone, but couldn't. If you tell anyone else, though, I'll deny it and tell them you're crazy, okay?"
Steve exchanged glances with me, then nodded calmly. I leaned forward with a pen in my sweaty hands, ready to start furiously scribbling notes, as Malcolm closed his eyes and retold his story.
It was a chilly Saturday night. I was in a happy mood. I just filled Smoother Sailing, his boat, with fuel. I was gonna take her out to my favorite fishing spot. I upped anchor at 8 p.m. and pushed off the wharf, hitting full throttle when I got to open waters. My spot was 3 hours away, but I don't mind. I loved the sailing. That feeling of cold air and sea spray rushing over you. You know what that feeling is? It's being alive. I hadn't felt that in a very long time. Visibility that night was great, and there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Being winter and all, there weren't any other boats about. It was just me, the sea, and the stars. Just the way I liked it. At around 9:30, my radar picked up another boat about 5 miles ahead. I'd never saw anyone out there in deep waters that time of night before, so I went to check it out. It was on the way anyway. Closing in, I saw the glow of a sweet-looking yacht. One of them millionaires' boats. All fancy and slick and big and lit up like a Christmas tree. It must have been an 80-footer. She was a real looker. I throttled back to get a good peek along her starboard side. She was the Mary C. I could see her name tattooed all fancy-like on that classy ass of hers. A couple of guys were on the deck, and a family inside the cabin setting up dinner. I waved a neighborly hello as I sailed by, but only the guys on deck saw me. And they just stared and wrinkled their nose like I was some bad smell. So I changed my hand wave to an extended middle finger and sped off laughing. No way I was letting them spoil my mood. I finally made it to my spot and baited my lines and dropped them in the water. I sat back and enjoyed my fishing in peace for a few hours. I was hoping to stay there the whole weekend, but a storm warning flashed up. Not wanting to be caught in a storm so far from the harbor, I pulled up my lines and made my way back. I did catch a good pink snapper, so it wasn't a wasted trip. I was a bit surprised to see the Mary C pop up on the radar again on my return route. It was around 4:30 a.m. now, and she hadn't moved at all. Getting closer, I could see she was still lit up, but something was wrong. There was a big dent along the starboard waterline, and she was listing slightly portside. I thought she may be taking on water. I got in close and yelled out for the crew. Didn't hear anything back but the waves slapping against the boat. I circled around slowly and checked the radio for distress signals. There was nothing on any of the frequencies. A lifeboat was still rigged up port side untouched. The crew would still be on board. I maydaid the Coast Guard and moored me boat up to the back of the yacht. There was a boarding ladder I climbed to get to the deck. The lights were all on, so I yelled out again. No answer. Nothing. The deck seemed normal. Some half-drunk glasses of wine on the table and some untouched food. Nothing unusual. I went into the cabin and noticed that the doors were busted. Like something big crashed into them from the inside trying to get out. The wooden frame was all splintered. I yelled out again to see if everyone was all right. Still no sound. Inside was another table set up with dinner. Everything was still laid out neat, no sign of struggle or trouble. Like the crew just vanished as they were tucking in. There was a galley next to the dining cabin. It was messy, but no different to what you'd expect after cooking. I could smell faint onions and meat in the air. Ahead was the forward cabin with the ship's navigation and a large lounge area. I was trying to check out the ship's log when I heard a sudden crashing sound behind me, back where the dining table was. I rushed back there, but it was only some glasses slipping off the table. The boat was now at a pretty bad angle. I saw some stairs leading down to the crew quarters and thought I'd quickly check them out. Before the ship sunk, just in case there were people trapped and needing help. Heading down, the carpet was already wet with seawater on one side. I went down the corridor, knocking on rooms and opening doors and yelling out for anyone who could hear. At the end was the master bedroom. I should have left the boat then and there. I wish I never opened it. There are some things that are just better left unknown. But it had seemed empty like all the others at first. But I noticed some small shoes under some drapes, like some kid was hiding behind them. I walked up slowly, whispering, "Hey kid, it's all right, there's nothing to be scared of, but we need to leave now." I got no response, not so much as a twitch. So I got in real close and ripped the drapes away. There was no kid there, just his shoes, and his severed feet still in them, like something had ripped him from his body. I fell back and gagged. I ran into the ensuite to throw up and saw the mirror was covered in blood. I stepped back and slipped on the wet floor, but it was blood, not seawater. I had the blood all over me. I saw 4 more shoes lined up in the bath, with severed feet still in them like the first. I screamed and ran as fast as I could back up the stairs. Near the top, I heard someone yell out to me. I was screaming and babbling, but they eventually calmed me down and cuffed me. The Coast Guard had arrived. They did a quick inspection and found more severed feet. They were in the closet of 2 of the other rooms I had checked out. They transferred me to their boat and detained me while they searched smoother sailing. Near my bunk, they found 1 more set of shoes and feet. Another kid's. I couldn't explain how it got there. 12 shoes and feet in all. 6 different people. They charged me with murder and maritime piracy. When it got to my court hearing, I still couldn't explain what happened. I was the last person to see them alive. I was a thief in my youth and was found uninvited on a rich guy's yacht. I had their blood all over me. Their remains were found on my boat. The Mary Sea had sunk by that mid-morning, taking any other evidence with it. What choice did I have but plead insanity?
Malcolm seemed to have aged 20 years as he finished telling his story. But then he looked at us, smiled, and the age washed away, along with the weight on his shoulders. When our time was drawing to a close, the guard arrived and was cuffing him back to his cell. Steve still felt he needed some closure. "Hey Malcolm, so you didn't do it then? You don't have to be here. We can, we want to help you out. Clear your name." Malcolm only chuckled.
"What makes you think I want to get out of here? I confessed, didn't I?"
But why? Why confess to something you didn't do? That's That's crazy!
Think about this. I know I've had a long time to think it over. In here, it's not so bad. I'm watched 24 hours a day. Someone's always checking on me. Watching carefully who comes in and out. Making sure I'm safe. One thing fishing has taught me is no matter how good you think you are, there's a bigger fish out there ready and waiting to eat your lunch. Or eat you for lunch. And outside, well, that thing is still out there. And still hungry. Out there, you have no one watching over you all the time. Making sure you're safe. So who do you think is really crazy? Huh?
That was the last we saw of Malcolm.